For this, the final installment of this series of 4 videos on the unity of opposites in philosophy, we shall discuss the antinomy found in political theory, the antinomy found in the intersection of liberty and equality. The 2 dimensions of political orientation have been widely discussed. First is governed by a social dichotomy concerned with personal freedom and the legitimacy of government. Libertarianism seeks to maximize autonomy by limiting the state. Authoritarianism seeks to maximize authority by limiting political diversity and democracy. Second is an economic dichotomy which distinguishes the left-right spectrum that is common to public discourse. The collectivist perspective on the left holds that the economy should be a cooperative enterprise and that what is best for whole groups and communities is more important than what is best for individuals. The individualist perspective on the right holds that the freedom and desires of individuals surpass any alleged common good, wherein individual differences are venerated and the right to autonomy is sanctified. When combined, these 2 dichotomies produce 4 basic classes of socio-economic theories, what is sometimes called the political spectrum or political compass. Here, the subjectivist and objectivist perspectives on the notion of right are expressed by authoritarian collectivism and libertarian individualism respectively. The former, more commonly referred to as state socialism or socialism from above, places the emphasis on economic equality and the objectivity of value, while libertarian individualism, or anarcho-capitalism, places the emphasis on social liberty and the relativity of value. In this presentation, we are interested in that class which seeks to unite equality and liberty, libertarian collectivism. Libertarian collectivism shall here be taken to encompass libertarian socialism, anarcho-socialism, and left-wing libertarianism. Such systems are all oriented by both the freedom for self-governance and by the moral worth of the collective, and thus express the basic tenets of Marxism. Indeed, classical Marxists regard it as the only genuine form of communism, and so it refers to the final product of the transition from capitalism, where there is public ownership of the means of production, equal access to the means of consumption, no state, and no social classes. This is of course the extreme case, but the fact that libertarian collectivism seeks the simultaneous exaltation of both liberty and equality at all is a matter of great contention. Some hold it to be the true and necessary goal of civilized man, and others as a futile contradiction. The hope is that human society will turn out to be similar to other self-organizing processes like biology and language, and that our ability to generate harmony in the midst of conflict shall one day find success. The extent to which liberty and equality truly are antithetic has naturally been widely discussed. On the face of it, it is clear that if all people are equal, then there must be some restrictions on freedom which have facilitated that equality, and if all people are liberated, they shall be free to accumulate more than their neighbours. Any organised attempt to redistribute wealth would constitute a reduction in liberty, and so the 2 rights do seem to be striving towards conflicting ideals. However, it is possible that a restriction on freedom could be one of self-restraint and will, rather than one of force, that the redistribution of wealth could be self-motivated from the desire of each individual to be equal, for in a society where each individual wills both liberty and equality, and where they act in accordance with their will, there is no logical contradiction between the 2 values. We are not, of course, as a modern race, blessed with such moral virtue, and the idea that we never will be is one with ammunition ready for debate. Reflecting its counterpart in metaethics, a truly democratic society must retain its equality through the self-organized cooperation of individuals, just as the prescription of subjective absolute value requires everyone to always agree. The libertarian collectivist society may be achieved only when each individual is an ideal citizen, an ideal observer, who understands that what is good for the collective is good for the individual, and who never strays from this guiding principle. Even if we define liberty positively as the ability to do whatever one pleases, it need not contradict equality, for the ability to do something does not make a person do it. Indeed, can we even be entirely equal when we are controlled by others, and can we be free when we have lesser abilities to act? In theory, equality and liberty must be perfect complements. It is in practice that they become so opposed. We have seen the result of attempting to force the two together, and we should never forget the evils begot by this desire, ill-conceived or otherwise. It is not that libertarian collectivism is at all undesirable, it is that it is too desirable, too easily masqueraded, too ideal, for we cannot live up to this ideal. There are people everywhere of all views and bents, each reacting to another's excesses. The harder we push in one direction, the greater rebellion will be felt in the other, and so the only stable medium between the two conflicting spirits of society is one of centrism, even though centrism requires the relative destruction of both sides. Any one-sided discrimination between equality and liberty can never be the solution to the troubles of our time, for equality and liberty can never be truly divorced. There is a common thread running through both ideals, and this thread is a value that no one can deny. More than that, it is a universal and fundamental natural right. It is our ownership of ourselves, our sovereignty. And only individual sovereignty can bring about a union between the two ideals, for individuals must act ethically, without coercion by an authority. Individuals must govern themselves, and the libertarian collectivist society must organize itself from the desires of individuals. It can never be crafted. Only through proper moral agency can collective individuality flourish, and the two strands of political thought may at last align. The self-governance, self-ownership, and self-determination of such an alignment reveals not only the sovereign individual, but the ideal society as a whole to be a concrete universal. This idea is expressed in Georg Hegel's Philosophy of Right, where he provides an account of the state as the vehicle of the realization of the absolute freedom of individuals via the dialectical development of society and reason. For Hegel, the state emerges as a concrete universal as the particular subjective wills of individual citizens come into alignment with the universal will of reason and the state as a whole. This alignment only occurs at the level Hegel refers to as ethical life, which is the concept of freedom which has become the existing world and the nature of self-consciousness. The sovereignty of the individual is thus expressed in Hegel's thought through the notion of will, for absolute freedom and thus self-ownership is a result of a dialectical process through which all will becomes one. Duty and right coincide in this identity of the universal and the particular will, and in the ethical realm, a human being has rights insofar as he has duties, and duties insofar as he has rights. Nevertheless, Hegel was a conservative collectivist, and his state revolved around a centralized authority. It was in Karl Marx, who applied Hegel's dialectical method to the conflict of social classes, that the state, as a concrete universal, would be associated with libertarian collectivism, or, for Marx, with communism. Though the inevitable conclusion of the historical dialectic would indeed be a synthesis of liberty and equality, Marx was a thoroughgoing materialist. Hegel, conversely, saw reality to be grounded in an absolute, non-dual, self-conscious spirit, which was the fuel of evolution. The dialectic without spirit is no longer a rational process with a predestined destination, but a mechanical one fueled by a violent war of opposites. Belgian political theorist Chantal Mouffe refers to the conflict between equality and liberty as the democratic paradox, and explains that it results from the articulation of two logics which are incompatible. Once the articulation of the two principles has been effectuated, even if in a precarious way, each of them changes the identity of the other. It is a paradox because the tension between equality and liberty can only be managed via contingent hegemonic forms of stabilization of their conflict. In Mouffe and Ernesto Laclau's 1985 book, Hegemony and Socialist Strategy, they develop an alternative solution to this conflict. As they see it, our current deliberative systems are flawed insofar as the overt antagonism between liberty and equality entails the discrimination and oppression of differing opinions. That is, our current systems have stability only insofar as they can build consensus, and consensus violates the value of varied perspectives. By reframing the conflict into one that is agonistic, in the sense that there is no expectation that each ideal should be willing to concede to the other, Mouffe believes we can facilitate a more inclusive and honest form of democracy. Antagonism is a struggle between enemies, while agonism is a struggle between adversaries, she says, and an adversary is somebody whose ideas we combat but whose right to defend those ideas we do not put into question. Mouffe describes her position as agonistic pluralism, in that a pluralism of values are acknowledged as competitors, but rather than suppressing this conflict and forcing a victor, it is exalted, even venerated, as the major driving force for positive change. I think that there is great value in this idea, but I do not think that it has been taken to its logical extreme. It is an unavoidable truth that any system in which citizens are imperfect moral agents will be forced to compromise on equality and liberty respectively. This is why political theory and political praxis are so reluctant to align. We can explain away the opposites of the world by asserting that unity transcends our dualistic experience, but as it concerns experience itself, opposition cannot be ignored. Our reality is built upon and of opposition. We experience the world as mental, we experience the world as physical. No amount of reduction or explication could alter this basic fact. Self-ownership is equality. Self-ownership is liberty. The former is merely a subjectivist perspective, just as the latter is objectivist. No single system can facilitate both of these values. No single system. But we do not experience mind and matter as a single system, or as a single substance. I leave you with a hint. Complementarity does not require moderatism or conservatism, because complementarity takes place between two things. Instead of trying to combine two things into one, perhaps we should leave those two things as they are. Perhaps we need two systems rather than one. Perhaps we need bidoctrinalism